It's time to pause for peace. My name is Jule and I welcome you to this episode. I pastor Hillwood, Presbyterian Church USA that gathers on the west side of Nashville, Tennessee. This podcast is being released the weekend in the United States when we celebrate Memorial Day, which is a time so many of us look forward to because it's a time when we kick off the mindset of summer, even if the actual season of summer won't come for a few more weeks. Memorial Day. And I think about memorial, remembering not just those who have served our nation, who have died in valiant ways while protecting our safety, but I think about remembrance as a Christian pastor and as the call that we have whenever we gather around the table. We are called to remember, to live in perpetual remembrance of Jesus, the Christ. So last September, I had an opportunity to be in southern France. I was busy following the path of Mary the Magdalene, legends believing that it was in southern France where she spent the last days, decades actually, of her life. And in particular, I started my trek in Marseille. Marseille, on the coast of the Mediterranean in southern France. I flew in there and I was going there because I wanted to go to the Abbey of Saint Victor. I spoke about the Abbey of Saint Victor a couple of weeks ago on Pause for Peace. And it was in the Abbey of Saint Victor where I wanted to experience the Black Madonna that is in the midst of this amazing crypt. So I made my way. I found lodging very close to the Abbey and kind of made my way to it, kind of happenstance finding it my first night there. And I spent so much time in the Abbey of Saint Victor. I wasn't in Marseille for very long, but most of it was spent in the Abbey of Saint Victor. And in that crypt, I just was taking photo after photo and immersing myself in this place where there are these amazing sarcophagi that have been found and these intricate carvings in this amazing rock. I believe it's all limestone, and even like this place where it is believed that the Lazarus that we read of in the canonical Gospels, that Lazarus was and perhaps even was buried. The crypt of the Abbey of of Saint Victor claims to have this tomb of Lazarus there. And I was making my way around this crypt. It was a massive crypt. I've never been in a crypt so big. A crypt, I should say, is a place where there would be burial of people, if you will. Sarcophagi would be placed there. Sometimes these crypts are unearthed, and it made a lot of sense to me that right near the Mediterranean, there would be this kind of underground crypt. There's a big old sanctuary over it, the Abbey of Saint Victor, having a congregation still worshiping there. And this crypt, I just spent hours in it. And I will say I was surprised, although it's kind of funny that I was surprised. I was surprised as I came around this corner and all of a sudden I saw these posters about Mary the Magdalene. And these posters that were advertising, it's all in French, which I don't speak or read, just very little bit of spoken French. And so I'm trying to do the translation. And what I discover as I came around another corner, I went into another part of the crypt and I looked off to my right and I discovered the chapel of Saint Mary Magdalene, the chapel of Saint Mary Magdalene. There it was in this crypt of the Abbey of Saint Victor. I was so surprised. I did not expect it to be there. And what I saw there, it was one of those experiences of like an awakening as the moments unfolded. It didn't happen all at once because I wasn't able to take in the wider expanse of this chapel. It was very small, actually, in this crypt, and it particularly was what looked like an altar or a table, if you will, and then behind it was this amazing, intricate carving in the rock of this image of Mary the Magdalene. And as I actually took a video and then finally came and stood before the rock and started to see, there was so much more there. It wasn't just Mary the Magdalene there herself. It was actually Mary the Magdalene in what looks to be a prayer pose, like on her knees, praying, and it looks as if she is hunched over this boulder. I have heard some folks who have looked at this image with me say it looks like she's got this big pregnant belly, but what I saw when I looked was Mary the Magdalene in this prayer pose, hunched over this boulder, and there are little cherub-looking angels all around her. And what finally came into focus for me was that the Magdalene was actually gazing at a much smaller, out of proportion image of a body on a cross. What looked to be the body of Jesus, the Christ, on this cross in the midst of being crucified. The other interesting detail I noticed, it was as if the heavens were opening and there was like a ray of light coming, the crucifixion scene, and then like a break in the rock, and then this Mary the Magdalene in this prayer pose over this big boulder. I have sat for hours with that image. In fact, I sat for a while with that image there in the crypt, and then taking as much photo and video as I could, I brought that home and have been just gazing upon it. In fact, teaching about it. I'm on my way soon to a conference, and I will be teaching there on the path of Mary the Magdalene and the lessons we can learn from her and the spirituality that we are able to glean from an early movement of Christianity that was actually following in the teaching that we have of Mary the Magdalene that actually comes to us from the Gospel of Mary that was unearthed in 1896. And there is this sense in which as Mary is in prayer, she is communing with her beloved, with Jesus, as he is in the process of dying, and the hope of the rising coming, and the angels all around. I think of that image every time I hear the words from the fourth gospel, the Gospel of John, that's in the canonical scriptures, put on the lips of Jesus, a time when he was speaking one last time to his friends, his followers, before he would undergo crucifixion. And there is a place in this monologue. It's known as the monologue, the crucifixion monologue, if you will. And it's believed to be a round table, the Last Supper, if you will, when Jesus gives these words. And part of his teaching at that time is the teaching to abide, to remain in him. Because he remains in God, and we remain in God, and we all can remain together. And he uses this image of the vine and the branch. I like to think about the root, the source, and the vine that comes forth, and the branch. And in this teaching, he reminds his followers to remain in him, that the branch will bear fruit, that our lives will actually be nourishment, that we will produce nourishment for the life of the world, even as we believe the life of Jesus was nourishment for all who met him, and continues to be nourishment for those who continue to dwell in him. So I hear that teaching to abide in me as I abide in you when I gaze upon this amazing carving of Mary the Magdalene abiding in perpetual union, in this perpetual love with her beloved, with Jesus the Christ, even as his body is being crucified. There is evidence in the Gospel of Mary. The understanding there is that Mary the Magdalene is having a vision in which the teacher is giving her this teaching. And it is one way to think about how we can abide. I've spoken of it before. This path of freeing ourselves, allowing our soul to be freed as we dwell in this union with Jesus the Christ, being released from the powers, the climates that can cause us to be bound now, unable to be free, and to be dwelling in that pool of love that is the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So for our prayer practice today, trying to pull all this together, I want to invite us to have in mind that image, even if I haven't fully been able to describe it in words here, that image of Mary in that prayer pose, focusing all of her heart attention on her beloved, even as her beloved makes that descent and releases fully his body, that his soul will be able to rise free. So if we can join Mary in that experience of abiding with Jesus, in the heart of Jesus, where these two, we might even think, meet through the heart space. This is our invitation for an experience to pause today. So I want us to begin by just taking a deep breath, allowing our central nervous system to just calm down a little bit, and maybe even focusing our feet on the ground, and then all of our attention into our heart space. So let's take a deep breath as we do so. And release that breath slowly. And the invitation is in the purest way you can think of the love that is Jesus. If you can think of putting yourself into, maybe even thinking about it, putting yourself into a pool, if you will, of absolute grace, a pool of infinite forgiveness, a literal cocoon, if you will, of tender mercy. It's almost like a womb-like experience of just abiding in unconditional love and having that sense, feeling even like as the amniotic fluid might be holding the fetus in the womb, feeling those waves of harmony and full acceptance, full union with this sense of unconditioned love, if we can imagine entering into that in these few moments through our heart space. So let's take another deep breath as we set this intention to abide in love. Many in the Christian household believe that Jesus is the fullness of pure love, of the love that beats at the heart of everything, at the core of the universe, that Jesus was the embodiment of that, who comes to show us that we too are the embodiment of that, and that we are here to live in that love. So in the stillness, we enter into perpetual remembrance of Jesus as we enter into this beautiful cocoon of pure, pure love. I invite you to just feel waves of grace surrounding you. Perhaps you're experiencing this internally, or maybe you literally are sensing in your energy field that there is harmony and grace and love radiating all around you. And just notice any sensations you're experiencing, any images or any words that might be coming, any colors you might be feeling or seeing. Maybe you're even hearing sounds, as if angelic choruses are singing beautiful music, that glorious harmony of the universe. If you're getting distracted, if something is pulling you off from the peace of these moments, then I invite you to set the intention to release that and to do so as you return to your heart space, returning to the love that is in you, and even doing so with your breath, taking a deep breath in. And as you exhale, whatever's distracting you, just letting that float away with your exhale. Maybe even your exhale is blowing that distraction away from you. And before we exit these moments of stillness, we'll take one more deep breath and exhale slowly. I invite you to return to the image of a woman on bended knee, gazing towards the heavens and seeking union with God, with the beloved, seeking union with the love that has been shared between her and Yeshua. Seeking union with the love that resides within herself, even if that means that pure love will be crucified by the world, that grace will be rejected by the rest of humankind, that committing to being devoted, body, mind, and spirit, to the way of love may mean great risk, challenge, and a dying to the other way of being, a dying to living according to our own appetites, and a perpetual remembrance that is carried on from the moment of the vision, of the quiet, of the abiding, a perpetual remembrance that is carried forth into the living of each day, that shows a way of being fully united with being the gift of the intermingling of heaven and earth, of spirit and matter, of flesh and soul, of ego and full authentic self. So as we exit from these moments of quiet, let us set that intention that our hearts will radiate with such a desire to love ourselves and others, to love that which is beyond us, the great God, the holy, the divine, the pure love that resides among us and in us and beyond us. And when you are ready, I invite you to open your eyes if you have had them closed. And if you will place your palms together in prayer pose, palms together right near the center of your chest. Take one more deep breath. And release it slowly. And do like a little bit of an inventory, a self-inventory of what you're noticing now, because you have paused for peace, because you have spent a few moments abiding to the best of your ability, abiding in love. Blessings for the rest of your week, dear friends. I look forward to seeing you next week on Pause for Peace.